Okay, the records are now open. Okay, you're not an extremely old soul in the sense of the entire history of the universe, but I'm seeing that you're part of a soul group that initially I think was supposed to go to another star system, but got circumvented to this particular solar system here. So you were, part of this group consciousness in the very beginning. For quite a while, because this star system was fairly young, and you were waiting for conditions to be correct as far as being able to incarnate into certain planets. You're not originally from Earth, but you're not from an external star system. So you're from this solar system. What I'm seeing with you is, and I'm getting more and more of these souls, which is telling me they're trying. Your type of soul is trying to work through some old karmic past life stuff as well. So there's no accident that you've come to see me today. I'm getting more and more, I think, messages about this particular planet. It is a planet, but it's not one that's existing today. It's called Maldek. Have you heard about Maldek? Okay, I'll tell you about Maldek. Okay, it's an interesting place. Back in the beginning, there used to be an additional planet between Mars and Jupiter, where the asteroid belt now is. Okay. There was a group of humanoids who decided to incarnate onto this particular planet. And it was kind of a cold place. It wasn't, it was kind of far from the sun. So, although the sun was hotter back then, so Mars was, inhabitable. Maldek was pretty cold, but this was a very hardy group of individuals. And I'm not sure where they originated from. I don't know if they have any ties to Anunnaki. I'm just seeing a group of humanoids that incarnated into Maldek. Now, Maldek has an interesting history. The humanoids that incarnated on Maldek were mostly lower fourth dimensional and third dimensional. Okay, so very physical beings. And they inhabited Maldek for quite a while. They started off peaceful at first, but then there was little factions that broke off and they started fighting with each other. So they had these, and they were kind of like an experiment to see how things would be run with total masculine energy. Okay, so it was more on the in lines of the masculine, but it wasn't higher level. It wasn't divine masculine. It was just it's totally patriarchal type society. And of course, these beings were very aggressive. Now I don't see you as being an aggressive person. So now, did you have any prior military experience or?
Very minimal.
Very minimal, okay.
I was briefly in the Army, long enough to just find out I didn't qualify and I got out.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. It's very common for Maldekian souls to want to join the military, at least when they were younger anyway, until they get more wise. And Maldek actually had some positive qualities too. These are people who are take action people. They're very hardy souls. They can get through anything. And they also, I think, I don't know, they have a level of spirituality about them, and I think probably because of what they went through. Now, what happened with them was they had all kinds of wars, and they blew themselves up. So what's left of their planet is the asteroid belt. Now, these souls did get a place to go. Okay, they didn't just disappear in the ozone. So they were allowed to reincarnate onto Earth. And I'm seeing your particular soul. You weren't a warlike person, even in Maldek. I'm seeing you as more of a kind of an elder, and I think you were on a council of some sort, and you kept warning them against, not to get too crazy with the weapons, but they got crazy with the weapons. Okay, so when you incarnated again into Earth, you of course you were incarnated onto Atlantis. So Atlantis was your very first Earth incarnation. Do you feel a connection with Atlantis at all, or
No.
no? Okay. Well, Atlantis was a lot of souls that are currently, I think, incarnated, especially since the 20th century. A lot of the souls that have reincarnated into the United States are old Atlantean souls. It was actually located right where the Atlantic Ocean is. It was a big continent in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And kind of, I think, in the area where they think the Bermuda Triangle is, they think it got swept into another dimension. Some people say it sank. I think they actually got destroyed and it sank. So the Maldekian souls kind of created the same scenario with Atlantis. Okay, initially Atlantis was inhabited by a mix of Earth souls and some star souls, or star people. They were heavily influenced by the Pleiadians and by the Nordics in particular. So I'm seeing that, I think with your particular genetics, there may be some connection with Nordic DNA, and I don't know what your specific heritage is as in this lifetime, but is it German or
English,
Irish? Okay, that would be Pleiadian, kind of Pleiadian Lyran. So that they're Nordic. So yeah, that would fit. So I'm thinking that, and I'm not really sure where the Maldekians came from originally. I know they were a group of humanoids, and they were just kind of, I think they came from somewhere else, and they were plopped off into this. But I'm seeing that your soul actually originated from there. So it wasn't like you came from somewhere else. So Atlantis was highly technologically advanced. It was kind of like the counterpart to Lemuria. Lemuria was a similar continent, but it was in the Pacific Ocean. Lemuria was very spiritually oriented. They were very low technology, high spirituality. Atlantis was the opposite. It was high technology, low spirituality. So at first it was a beautiful place to live. It was very, I think, very advanced. They had everything. And Edgar Casey. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but I've read some of his accounts that the souls that had started incarnating as of the beginning of the 20th century were all coming from it. They were old Atlantean souls. They chose to come in during this time because they were trying to work off old karmic baggage, just old karmic stuff that occurred in Atlantis. But they needed to find a time where the technology would be advanced enough. So they picked the 20th and 21st century. So in that lifetime, and trying to see what it is that you did, they're saying you were some sort of scientist. Okay, so it was, technological type of job, but you were always more of an observer soul. Okay, so you're not one that would directly get involved with causes or things like that. Kind of like the star seeds are always about the mission. You're just more like, I'm an observer. I'm here to, kind of see from and process and report back to my higher self. So you've opened yourself up to certain experiences because you are reporting back to higher self. Your higher self is connected to an oversoul, which ends. So it's kind of like it goes up and up and up. So we have Atlantis. You were a scientist in that, and you have a very masculine essence to your energy. So you Most of your incarnations, I think you incarnated as a man. Okay, so I don't see very many, if any, that were, you decided to become a woman all of a sudden. So from Atlantis, and I'm not seeing you had an eventful life in Atlantis. You incarnated actually, and you weren't particularly, for being somebody that was from Maldek, you weren't particularly very warlike. I think you were used to the regiment from Maldek, so I think sometimes you chose a military career because it was in your past lives, because it was similar to what your soul experienced before, but it wasn't like a great love of yours. I think you're more of a scientist. You're more of an observer, and you're doing it for the higher good, but you're not a soul that's totally out there. But and it's interesting that you're an Aries, because your Aries energy is very masculine oriented. It's the very first the star or zodiac sign in the zodiac wheel, and it represents very forceful, take charge kind of energy, very masculine. Okay, and that's describes Maldek. I'm getting in the records you also have a connection with Mars. Maybe that's why you chose Aries as well, but I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I think some of the Maldekian souls, the ones that were a little more evolved, got to go to Mars. So there was some bases on Mars. This is what started, I think, some of these soul contracts that you currently are running right now. Okay, so we have some stuff that's running with some old contracts. Okay, and on Mars, you are also a scientist, and I'm seeing you on board on a couple of bases there, and there was some stuff going on that wasn't it wasn't totally on the light, it wasn't on the dark, it was just kind of neutral. It was kind of like you guys were just taking in information. However, there was also interactions with gray aliens in Mars, and also with there were certain reptilians, more grays than reptilians. Okay, now you worked alongside the grays, and I think you created some soul contracts, maybe willingly or subconsciously, okay, with these gray aliens. What they're showing me is, in that lifetime, I think for whatever reason, maybe just out of curiosity, or maybe you decided there was some benefit to it for you. You made a contract with the gray aliens that they were allowed to take occasional samples of your DNA, because they were very interested in Maldekian DNA, okay, or souls that came from Maldek, because they were looking to strengthen their own genetics. Now, at that time, you were working alongside them, so they were your, companions, or I don't know if you call them, colleagues, so it was no big deal to go to the lab, give them a sample, but then things got kind of interesting once you decided to incarnate onto Earth. So moving along forward with Atlantis. Now, I'm not seeing any gray interference in Atlantis. I'm seeing that you were basically just an earthling trying to live a life. You continue kind of the scientist profession, because it was what you did on Mars, and it was you liked it. It was much better than being a warrior or going into war, or being a soldier. So in this lifetime, what do you do for a living now, other than, I know you're retired, but
I was a contract engineer.
Okay.
For most of my life.
Okay.
Piping design for oil and gas and chemical plants.
Okay. So that fits with the kind of technological theme that we're kind of seeing running. Yeah, we're seeing this kind of technological. Now, around the time of Atlantis, I think I said that you were there before they had their big catastrophe, and they they sank to the bottom of the ocean. So you didn't experience that catastrophe, but some of your Maldekian souls started conflicts also in Atlantis. I mean, fellow, Maldekian souls. You were always more peaceful. You're actually one of the more peaceful Maldekians I've encountered. I mean, some of them they tend to incarnate onto this planet as MMA fighters or, or soldiers or things like that. But you're actually very, very peaceful. So it tells me maybe that there was some other genetic influences in there with your genetics. But of course you were kind of aligned with these Maldekians, so you kind of rolled with it, I guess. Trying to see. Okay, you did have an incarnation in Egypt. Now, in that lifetime, interestingly enough, and it goes along with this technological. You were kind of one of the builders, one of the people that would build, these big monolithic. And I think that kind of fits in with your job today. And at that time, you were actually utilizing higher level technologies to help move the stones. So do you resonate with Egypt at all, or not really? Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I would say so. I think out of all the lives, that was your favorite life. It was very technologically advanced, but not to the point where they still maintained a level of spirituality. And I think you found that very interesting. And I'm not saying that you were, directly involved with, with spirituality, except maybe you may have prayed to some god to make sure that your project went well. But you're basically a pragmatic individual. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. The Maldekians are very task oriented and pragmatic. That's who they are. It's just. And they tend to be more technological than spiritually oriented. So from there, I see that was a really good life for you. I think you did well for yourself. You had a family. Your family was, I think, well taken care of. You had, you made a very good living. And I'm seeing that you had a couple of homes up and down the Nile. And I'm also seeing that you would travel up to Alexandria a lot, and would actually go to the library there. You had this insatiable desire for knowledge. And I think in the Egyptian life, you weren't bothered too much by the grays kind of popped in later. So now these beings that you encountered when you were telling me your story before, do you think they were gray aliens, or you just saw craft mostly? I can't remember the exact details.
It was mostly craft. The only being I recall seeing was actually a white ghost figure.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I remember the one that took you down the hall. Yeah, and you kept trying to look at it, and they kept moving.
Yeah, we weren't in the hall. We were in a forest walking a path.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. And you kept looking back, and it was kind of faded out, or didn't watch it.
Very ghost-like.
Yeah.
And every time I tried to catch a glimpse of some detail, it turned its head like that at the same time. Always kept its face
kind of hidden,
as if it was afraid I was going to see something, even though there was no detail to what I could see anyway.
Yeah, gotcha. I think it was a gray. I'm going to check in. Yeah, they're saying tall gray. And I think the reason why he didn't want you to see his face was because you would automatically recognize it. I mean, because sometimes you can make out features even though they're kind of faded out. when I saw the Arcturians, they were kind of like that. I couldn't really see their features that well. They were mostly like light. I mean, really bright light, and I could see eyes, and I could see certain faded out features, but it was very faded out, and they were almost transparent. And I'm getting maybe the sense that this being may have presented itself to you in maybe that same way, but you could probably, if you were to look at his face head on, you could see that it was a gray alien. So it was trying to hide itself from you. Maybe because it didn't want you to know that it was still trying to cash in on your the little contract you made with the Greys back in Mars. Okay, so and I'm gonna explore that experience more because I feel like there's probably more to it. Okay, your contract was with them was supposed to be finished after Mars, and it actually was, but they were trying to renege on the contract. So what I'm seeing is that they were like, oh well, there's no due date, or so we're just going to continue taking samples, so. And they were very interested in your genetics because it was actually from Maldek, and it was there. Like I said, they knew the Maldekians were very strong, hardy individuals, and they were trying to strengthen their own DNA because they had lost the ability to reproduce. So they were just trying to get samples from specific races, and yours was particularly interesting to them. Did you encounter this being after you saw a craft, or was it?
No.
Okay.
The beginning of that session was already being in the forest on the pathway.
Oh, gotcha. And so you just kind of woke up and you were on this pathway?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he or she made it clear that they were showing me around on a place that I had not been before.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they were giving me kind of an overall tour
mm-hmm.
of details.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm not getting that it was totally negative. Okay, what I'm seeing is that they did renege on the contract. Okay, so they violated your contract in a way, but in a way it was there was an open clause, or I don't know what they were, but what I'm seeing is that they were taking you somewhere remote, and I can't see exactly where it was, but do you think they were taking you to a starship on the path, but maybe you just didn't remember? Because I'm seeing a starship.
It could be, but my recollection is all began and ended on that pathway, and this person explaining details, or merely letting me witness details and absorb them.
Okay.
Different from Earth, unique things.
Okay.
Mostly with plant life. All plant life glowed at various colors and intensities. And
so do you feel like maybe this pathway was off planet?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was quite similar to the setting in Avatar.
Yeah.
Some of the details were the same or similar or different.
Gotcha.
Avatar.
Okay.
Well, on Avatar, they spent a lot of time traversing. Their pathways were tree limbs.
Yeah.
To a large degree.
Yeah, exactly.
In this, there was none of that. The pathways were typical grass pathways, typical of what would be a pathway in the woods. But they were all covered with grass instead of just dirt or twigs and stuff. And to any plant life that was touched, brightened up. It would increase the intensity of its color while touched or moved.
Okay.
And left alone, it would dim down.
Okay.
But still glowed. Everything glowed. Everything alive, plant-wise, glowed.
Gotcha. Okay, they did take you against your will, but you did make a contract with them. I think it was off planet. I think because you were a scientist, you were somebody that they worked with before.
But contract meaning what?
It's a soul contract. It's a contract between you and this race, whatever for whatever purposes. So I think in that initial Mars life, you made a contract to allow them to use your genetics. I think they were still taking samples of your genetics, but they weren't necessarily hurting you. I don't get the sense they hurt you at all. I think maybe they just figured, oh well, he can help us with some of the plant life, and then we can take his genetics. So maybe there was like a trade agreement. So a lot of times it's just a contract. We make contracts with individuals, with different star races. You know, it goes on and on. But I'm getting with the luminescent plants. I'm getting that it was Mars, but it was a different dimension. And Mars in the higher dimensions is not like this barren red place. And I'm getting that these beings they weren't helping you, but they weren't hurting you either. They were just kind of like, okay, he's someone we know from Earth. He used to work with us as a scientist. Because with them in the higher dimensions, there's no linear time. So they just saw you as somebody they knew from Earth. They worked with you before. There is no concept of linear time. They didn't, for them it was like, maybe a year after they've seen you, because that time is really kind of very compressed when you are in the higher dimensions. So what for you would be like 100,000 years, for them would be like maybe a year and a half. So that's how it feels for them. So they just saw you as a soul they had a contract with. They thought maybe you can help them identify some plant life, because this was something new in this dimension. And they thought, well, we know him. We'll go grab him and bring him out here. And they thought, okay, because I do see this genetic connection. I mean, it's like, so they thought, okay, we'll have him help us, and then he'll help us by giving him a sample of his DNA. And I just saw they drew some blood, or they took maybe a piece, but it wasn't like extensive experimentation. They were actually, I think, fairly gentle with you because you were their friend, So, yeah, you were their friend. So they felt like we're not gonna do all the crazy experiments we do with other beings, or other humans. We're just gonna. He'll give us a sample. He'll help us out. We're all good. So, now I'm wondering what your soul's getting out of this, because you made a contract with them for a reason, and your guides are telling me protection. Your guides are actually a variety of different star beings and Earth beings. So, by star beings, I mean planetary beings, because you've always stayed within the star system. So, two humanoids that look Maldekian. Okay, they just look human. The Maldekians basically were human. There was nothing, I think, significant about their appearance. Some of them had more of a Nordic look to them, so they were tall, well built, lighter colored hair, blue eyes. But they, for the most part, they look human. I see a Native American guide. Okay, so I think you may have had a Native American incarnation. Do you have any Native American genetics at all? And just no. Okay, there is a Native American guide. I'm seeing a couple of tall grays and one kind of insectoid-looking being that I think you worked with on Mars. Looks like praying mantis-like. They're all beings that they were either you in a previous lifetime or you worked with them. So I think the Maldekian souls were actually you in a prior lifetime. It was just your higher selves, or the self that you were before.
Yeah.
The grays, I'm not seeing that you have any gray genetics at all. You're human. You have a human, genetic lineage. But I do see that these beings were beings you worked with on Mars. I'm not getting any names. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not real good with names. I'll check in. Why? Is there somebody that talks to you that has a name, or?
I was told years ago that I had an ET guide, and the name was Monka, Monka.
Okay. I saw briefly the names of the Maldekian guides. One was Tor, Tor, and the other one was something like, it was like it was like Monas, but that could have been the gray alien's name. So I don't know, it was like Monas or Monad or but I didn't get any names on the gray aliens. I couldn't pronounce their names, so I'm sorry. He probably just gave you a name just so you can. But their actual names are pretty unpronounceable because they don't use the same language system as we do, and they speak primarily telepathically. As you know that. So I think he was just giving you a name just so you could have something to call him. They do that a lot. So. But yeah, I couldn't pick up any names with the grays. There was, but yeah, you do have some extraterrestrial guides. And I'm seeing Native American guide, which is interesting because I don't see in this lifetime you have a Native, you told me you don't have any Native American bloodlines, and this also could be just a soul that maybe you worked with in a prior lifetime. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a genetic link or you in a prior life. Now I'm seeing some other guides as well. I'm seeing a man that looks kind of Celtic, and he's wearing like some sort of burlap robes, like almost like somebody that it was probably you in a prior lifetime. He's wearing burlap robes, and he looks like he's like an artisan or like a blacksmith almost. So I don't know if you did any blacksmithing work. We're gonna check on that. I think maybe in a prior lifetime you did. I'm also seeing. I don't see any angelic guides. It's not to say you don't have any, but you don't have any that are assigned to you, all the time. Yeah, you have a Celtic guide, a Native American guide, 2 Maldekians, and a handful of gray aliens. So anyway, back to your experience. I don't know why the gray alien was trying to hide his face from you. I think maybe he thought he would startle you. So, and I'm getting it was more of a male energy.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, it was a male entity, and I do get that he was somebody that you knew from a prior life. Probably when you came, it didn't feel weird because you probably felt almost a familiarity with this being. I do see he took you to some craft, and I don't know. I think maybe you didn't remember, and that was the pathway was taking you to that, or some sort of. And I think they were showing you some of the samples that they had taken. And I think during the tour, he was also showing you, just examples of these different luminescent plant types. But I am getting that you were on a higher level dimension of Mars. Okay, so you actually went off planet and came back. I get that. I'm also getting that one of your gifts is astral travel. You do it quite a lot. So.
Only once it was a real hard case
Mm-hmm.
where there was proof and couldn't be disputed.
Okay. And when was that?
Uh, Late 60s, early 70s in Oregon.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. What happened then?
Uh, I had read some on astral projection and was kind of interested in it, but had never attempted it.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I had attempted it, total failure. I didn't know how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And this one Sunday, I just did it. I was asleep in a waterbed,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden I'm looking down at myself, and then it's like this, and I was taken off someplace.
Okay.
And I didn't wish to go someplace.
Mm-hmm.
I was just along for the ride.
Okay,
I
gotcha.
was taken 300 miles to my hometown in Southern Oregon. And I was at 500 to 1,000 feet up in the air.
Okay.
Didn't feel any air rush, but I was seeing the land pass below me
Mm-hmm.
and familiar sights,
Mm-hmm.
crossing highways that I was very used to, which made it real to me.
Oh,
I
wow.
was seeing what I was familiar with and recognized. Every road I crossed was paths I had taken many times.
Interesting.
And
Did this happen during dream time or during the day or
it was midday.
midday? Okay.
I was sleeping off a drunk from the night before.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Sunday morning.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Bad Saturday night.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And really was interested in nothing but sleeping and gaining my strength back.
Yeah, gotcha.
For the week to come.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But anyway, I even remember going over Crater Lake, Southern Oregon, and then Klamath Lake, and assumed that I'm going to Klamath Falls, my hometown, and maybe the house I was raised in. When I realized I was off that course, I wasn't going to downtown Klamath Falls, or even my home residence.
Okay.
I was west of it.
Okay.
And as I carried on, I realized, oh, I'm going to my mother's current address, which is a ranch west of town.
Okay.
And in fact, went there. I saw many cars in the parking area. Being a little ranch, there was a lot of parking area. It was 15 acres.
Okay.
There was like 10 cars that I've never seen before, all with out-of-state plates. Montana, Idaho, Washington, and California. All western or Pacific Northwest states. And I'm very car conscious. I recognize makes, models, and where the plates were from.
Yeah.
You can even read the plate numbers. And this is kind of on the fly. I'm still moving as I'm seeing this, and I go through the roof of the house and into the main living and kitchen area of the house. And there's about probably 8 people besides my mother and stepdad. Maybe 8 people in that living area in the house.
Yeah.
Casually conversing. My mother's frantically putting together dinner.
Right.
Which she doesn't handle stress situations like that. She's not an entertainer, so she was really under some pressure. I could feel.
Yeah,
But she
gotcha.
was doing her best.
Yeah.
And I could see in the patio, covered patio out back, about that many people again. 8 or 10 people out there drinking beer or lemonade or a Coke or something, and conversing and reminiscing. It was obvious it was a family reunion on my stepdad's side, the side I had no familiarity with, didn't know any of them.
Yeah, gotcha. So you were just kind of like in kind of astral, like in the astral realm, just kind of viewing this kind of below, or just all this stuff happening, or gotcha.
And down to their level, in fact, like you and I are right now.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Part of it was where I'm up here.
But then you kind of descended, and you were kind of like just floating around,
Yeah.
but they couldn't see you though.
Right.
Okay.
And I remember getting this close to my mother, looking her right in the face and feeling her uncomfortable tension
Mm-hmm.
and trying to do something she was not comfortable with.
Gotcha. Okay.
Making a dinner for 15 people or so.
Yeah.
Then I heard that,
Mm-hmm.
and it startled me and kind of stopped everything. And I'm looking around, and then I hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
I realize, oh shit, somebody's knocking on my door in Portland,
Mm-hmm.
where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, hearing-wise, I'm there.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And I can remember feeling uncomfortable, not knowing what to do. I'd like to answer the door, but I know that that body can't move.
Mm-hmm.
I can hear, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, except I never moved willingly
Yeah.
through this whole thing. I was taken.
Right.
And in fact, at this moment, probably the third knock, it was like being hooked to a bungee cord, and I went reverse
Oh wow. So you went back
all
to
the way back. It
Yeah.
only took seconds,
All right. Yeah.
maybe 20, 30 seconds. And I descended into my building, saw me in a waterbed,
Mm-hmm.
and went in hard.
Oh wow. Okay.
And in fact, when I was joined with my body, I
Mhm.
was still bouncing around from the impact in the waterbed.
Wow.
It was still throwing me around.
Yeah.
Because
Gotcha.
I had hit it hard.
Yeah.
At which point, then I could move my earth body, and I got up and went and answered the door.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a friend, and he said, "What took you so long? I've been beating on the door for a while."
Mm-hmm.
I was really deep in sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So that ended that situation.
Mm.
Almost.
Mm-hmm.
This was in like August.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, this is back when I was single, when I could, I did Christmas in Klamath Falls.
Mm-hmm.
And this year I did. I
Mhm.
drove down to Klamath Falls for Christmas. And back in those days, typically my mother and I would be the last ones up.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody drinking beer after dinner.
Yeah.
And her and I would continue drinking beer and swapping stories in the
Mm-hmm.
morning until maybe 2:33 we'd go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So after having kind of a buzz on for a while and swapping stories, I ran out of stories, and I told this one.
Mm-hmm.
And when I told this story, my mother's mouth dropped open. She says, "Oh my God." She says, "That happened exactly as you said." And in fact, she said, amongst all the chaos and trying to cook dinner, she said, "I felt your presence and was wondering why and how I could be feeling your presence under these circumstances."
Oh wow, that's amazing. So your mom confirmed that you were actually there.
Yeah, when I told her the
Yeah.
details, she says, "That's right on." She
Mhm.
says, "These were relatives from Pacific Northwest and a few from California."
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, all on my stepdad's side, so I didn't know or know of any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no real reason for me to be there.
Yeah,
In fact,
gotcha.
my mother apologized at that point. She said, "I felt a little awkward trying to figure out what to do about you, because you should technically be here." But she said, "We had talked on the phone not long before that, and I knew things weren't going well for you, and this would be an inconvenience financially as well as just time-wise."
Yeah, so she was actually thinking about it. So it wasn't like she was purposely excluding you or
No.
yeah.
She thought she'd do me a favor by just not even telling me about it.
Yeah,
Let
gotcha.
it happen, because I would spend money to come down there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room for all these people. She might make room for me, or I might be like some of the others having to go get a motel.
Yeah, which would be more of an expense.
Yeah, so she saw it as nothing but an inconvenience for me with a bunch of people I didn't know anyway.
Right, gotcha. Okay. But yeah, your guys are telling me that you actually learned astral travel on Mars, and it was just one of those skills that everybody learned. And you also know how to remote view as well. You were doing actually you were astral traveling in that experience, but I think if you exposed yourself to remote viewing, you would probably find you could do it fairly easily. But your guides are telling me you have done it before, and they said you got good at it after a while. They say you're better at the astral traveling. You do that more, and they say you do it, but you don't remember.
With all of these supposed very good remote viewers,
Mm-hmm.
hit games, etc.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm curious why there's unsolved mysteries that wouldn't be mysteries if they were merely remote viewed and people report on it.
Yeah, I know.
And then maybe verify it somehow later to cross check it. Um,
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say maybe there's something that maybe things are kept mystery because there's something the blocking the people from viewing it. Does that make sense? Usually these deep mysteries are connected with nefarious individuals or nefarious dark beings, and just as we know how to remote view, they also know how to block our remote view. So that's what I think might be some of what's going on.
one of the mysteries, of course, is how are the pyramids built?
Mm-hmm.
Are we being blocked from viewing that per controlled?
I think a lot of it's hid. I think a lot of it's hidden, and I'm seeing actually in the records they used a lot of sound frequency to lift up the. It was mostly sound frequency and to lift up the stones, and it wasn't human labor. And they used certain machinery that helped duplicate it because they weren't able to do the higher level frequency stuff, so they had to build machinery to do it on Earth because Earth is denser. And I'm seeing, at least in your Egyptian life, I think you were involved with some of that technology, that you were in part of building it or knew how to work it at least. So I think if you were to check in on some of your old soul memories, if you did like a past life regression, it'd be interesting to see what popped up with that. The other thing I'm seeing with Egypt too is the Sphinx used to have a lion face. Didn't have a human face at first.
I've seen that, but then also too, just recently, probably on the web,
Mm-hmm.
I saw that face as, is it a jackal or dog-like head, face, long pointing ears?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Anubis. That's the god of the underworld.
Oh,
Yeah, it's kind of he's usually black and he's kind of reclining like a sphinx, but he has the jackal face and the pointy ears. Yeah, that's the representation of Anubis.
when I was in Saudi Arabia, I saw that kind of dog.
Yeah, no, it is an actual dog. That there is an actual breed
Yeah.
that they use. That's an ancient breed from ancient times. Yeah.
Yeah, it really caught my eye when I saw them. All dogs in Saudi are wild,
Mm-hmm.
running packs in the desert.
Mm-hmm.
They're not kept as pets. Over there, the house pets are cats,
Oh,
but
interesting.
not dogs.
Oh, that's weird. Just kind of almost the
Anyway, I
opposite.
saw that kind of dog in the desert while he was sniffing around a dumpster at a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
They were just scavengers, all of them. But he was very narrow. He was as big as a greyhound,
Mm-hmm.
like that tall at the back hips, but probably that wide.
And his hips.
All of his pelvis,
Yeah.
and hip joints and stuff was all within like 5 to 6 inches.
Yeah.
Totally out of scale with
But
the other dimensions of
the body.
Yeah.
They were, I think, used for they were Pharaoh's hunting dogs. I think
Oh,
they were used for hunting. So they were almost built similar to greyhounds, but maybe a little bulkier in some parts of their body. Maybe the front part of their bodies, but now I can't remember the name of the breed. I think they still exist today, but yeah, they were used for hunting, so they had to be very fast. Yeah, so hunt down the jaguars or whatever else they were trying to catch, but yeah, you did have, that was probably, I think, your favorite past life. Now I do see other past lives with you in mostly Europe. And I'm seeing a couple of past lives in the United States. And I think you were. I'm seeing that you were work. You were. This was like late 1800s, and you were on working with the railroad. I don't know if you have any connections with that in this life, but and you could have been an engineer or somebody that was. I don't see you as just a worker though. You were somebody that was a little more elevated. So you had to have been an engineer or you weren't like somebody driving the train. You were somebody that was working on the mechanics of it. So, but you were like a person that was kind of like the boss, and people did your your bidding. But
I could see myself as an engineer, and I could also see myself as part of the survey crew staking out the route.
yeah, and I think you did that as well because I'm seeing that you were very involved with the expansion out west. That was, I think, a kind of a sole task you took for yourself. That you knew that the United States needed to move forward, and you wanted to be a part of that. Um, and I do see that you worked alongside. You were one of the few individuals that had Native American friends. You were, very, I mean, accepting of other cultures, and I think maybe that was due to your Maldekian, heritage, where or the time on Mars where you had to work with different beings. So to you, the Native Americans were like brothers. You didn't see them as enemies. As a matter of fact, I think again you had soul contracts with them, so I think that's why you had have a Native American guide in this life. Just kind of helping to guide you. The Native American guide I'm seeing is trying to see if I can recognize the particular tribe. They're saying Plains Indian. I want to say Apache, maybe. So somebody that was, so one of the tribes that were more in the central United States, not the ones that were further south or the ones that were more north, but more of your plains. But the Cherokee claim direct lineage with the Pleiadians, or so, and the Lakota does too. So kind of makes you wonder, why were they so persecuted? So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing you had the normal amount of incarnations. I mean, they were mostly Europe, and I'm seeing North America. I don't see anything in Africa except for the Egyptian life. I don't see anything in South America, nor in Asia. So I'm just seeing you kind of just went through I'm seeing you stayed within, certain family, same kind of family, lineage, same, or just maybe a narrow range of family lineages. So now, like even though you are a soul from this solar system, you do have a spiritual path, and of course that is your choice, and obviously you're interested in this kind of stuff. So it tells me that you have your higher self is trying to lead you to a more spiritual orientation. And I do see you remaining on Earth and in consequent or future incarnations, but it'll be fourth and fifth dimensional Earth. So you'll be evolving as well, because I think the human body is supposed to be evolving from carbon-based to, they say, silica, and then from silica to crystalline. And then the structure of Earth is going to change. It's going to become more of a crystalline, light, lighter.
One of the other dimensions.
Yeah, one of the other dimensions. Yeah. So you are moving towards that. I don't see you staying in third dimension in the next life. I'm seeing you because you're doing the work of discovering who you are and of being a spiritual person. I do see you evolving at least to fourth dimension, so maybe even fifth. So So I think your future lives will be a lot easier than this life was. It was just a really great joy to get to know you and to hear more about your story. You have some very fascinating
And
stories.
likewise, too.
Yeah, thank you.